Hello, Donna here. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make this gorgeous little butterfly edged flip pocket. I've designed this pocket so that you can make it separate. You can make a couple of them and you can put them in your stash, and then you can add this to your journal after you've finished making your journal. You can also sew it into the signatures of your journal, but ideally it's made to be added after your journal has finished. I've got this pattern available in both A4 and letter size. I've just got a plain piece of coffee dyed paper and print sheet number 1 directly onto your coffee dyed paper. There's also a template which is a guide for cutting out the shape of the pocket. The easiest way to get started here is to cut page 2 out first. Just on the black line, cut out the outline of the pocket. And this is the top of my pocket and the bottom. I'm going to cut out the scoop. So now I'm going to put this back on top of my butterflies. Now I've got my pocket template cut out and I've just remarked these marks here. I'm going to match them up with the targets here. I can make sure everything's straight, and I'm just going to draw a pencil line across the top. Very light pencil line. I'm not going to draw it too hard because I need to rub it out later. And another pencil line across the bottom. Just a temporary center line where the pocket will be folded. So now I've got my outline of the pocket on my butterfly page. I didn't print that out on this page here because you don't want to see any of these black lines on your finished pocket. Now what we need to do here is fold this in half, and this target here has to match this target here on the back. You can put this up against a window and you'll be able to see through here to here at the back, so you can see the butterflies through here. But when you put this up against a window, you can actually see the target here and the target here as well. So just line those two targets up. Don't line up the edge of your paper. Make sure your targets are lined up. And once they're lined up, then you crease your center fold. I wouldn't even follow these center lines here that I temporarily marked. Make sure you follow your targets. Now I'm just going to do a test to see how close I was to lining up these targets. Just going to push my needle through that target and see if I've come out close on that side. Not very. Same here, push there, and that one's a lot closer. So it's a good way to test how close you are at getting to your targets. Same on the edge of your butterfly. We're going to fussy cut the edge of this butterfly out so you can actually put a needle prick there and you'll see on the other side it's come out at the same place. The same on the edge of this one. I'm just going to put a very small needle prick and I've come out perfectly on the edge of that one. And we'll do another one just randomly here. And I've come out perfectly on the edge there. So that's a good way to test that your back butterfly is in line with your front butterfly. The next step is we're going to put our hinge here. We're not going to glue the pocket closed or anything yet. If you wanted to sew this in as a signature, this is where you would do it. You would cut out the shape of your pocket now. So you could cut this line here, cut out the shape of your pocket, and then sew this into your journal before you glue your pocket closed. I'm not demonstrating that today. I'm just demonstrating how to make a freestanding pocket. Now the hinge is going to be sewn right on this fold line before we finish the pocket. Just pick a stamp of your choice. I just use a black ink. This is a really old craft paper that I've had since 1992. You can use a larger stamp with lots of text on it. You can use a smaller stamp with a couple of lines on it. I particularly like this one. It turns out really good. So that's my favourite. And if you haven't got anything like that and you've only got really small stamps, you can use those as well. I just pieced them together. I just put two different ones of the small one on each end, and I just randomly just used that side or that side and just put a little bit here and there until I got enough text on there to give me a little bit of an image. And then you just work out how long you want your little torn hinge. You don't need it the full length, so I think it looks pretty good a bit shorter. So then you just tear off how much of that you want. You don't have to have it going all the way to the edge and the side. I quite like it finishing before the edge. So I have about a third of the hinge showing there and about 2/3 are under the back here. So you've got something interesting to look at when you flip the page. So we have it around about there. So you get the drift of how you need to do that. Now what you can also use is a paper page. You can rip a paper page. So if you've got something edged like that, that would look pretty good there as well. And whatever paper that you've got that's going to look quite interesting, you can tear that down. You can colour this with distress ink if you want. So that's ready to go. Now the way I do this, you can sew this in by hand or you can use your sewing machine. So there's my cut off line here at the bottom. I'm not going to have it right up to the top. You could put it in the middle, but I think it looks better a little bit lower towards the bottom. So I'm going to work it out that I want it about there. Now because I don't want to get any glue anywhere near the needle part of my sewing machine, I'm going to be very careful, and I'm just going to put a pencil mark there and a pencil mark there. So then I'm just going to put right on this fold line just a few tiny dots of glue. And I mean really tiny, hardly any. Just enough to tack it like a pin. Right on the fold. I don't want any spilling out anywhere else. They're that small that you can hardly see that I've put any on there. Then I'm going to place that back. If I zoom right in, you'll just see the glue there. Very small amounts. Now all that's going to do is hold that there until I get to the machine, because you'd be surprised at how tricky that is to try and sew that down now. So now I've opened that up and I'm just going to run my finger on there. So now when I fold that over, that is just going to stay put. So I can sew down here now. So what I'm now also going to do is I'm going to use my needle. Right, follow the fold line there. Just going to put a very small pin mark or a needle mark there on that fold line, turn it around and do the same there, just so I know where I've got to start sewing and finish sewing right there. All right, that pin mark now is transferred to the inside. So I'm just going to head on over to the sewing machine and sew that down. Don't try and fold your pocket closed at this stage, because that is only tacked on with a very small amount of glue and it will pull off. And here I am at the sewing machine. I am going to turn over my pocket and so from the inside. It's just easier to follow that way. And you can see now why I put that tiny little bit of glue to hold that there. It just makes it so much easier. I'm going to hold the tails of my thread before I start sewing. I'm going to sew from the start there where I've got that mark, or very close to it. And I'm just going to do a straight stitch. I'm not going to back stitch or anything like that. I'm just going to sew straight down that center line. Now I know where to stop because of that pinhole. That's it. Now I'm done sewing in that paper hinge. I'm just going to tidy up these threads that are left hanging over. Because I didn't back stitch, I'll show you what I do with them. I'm going to pull them through to the inside. So we've got one thread on the inside and we've got one thread on the outside. So turn it over to the inside. You watch this. When you pull this thread, that thread from the other side is going to pull into this side. You watch the little loop form. See that little loop there? You grab that little loop and you pull it through. So now that tail that was on the other side is now on the inside. And I'm just going to tie and cut that off. That's it. Same on this one. Just pull it till you see that little loop there. Now I'm just going to get my needle in that loop and pull it through. Tie it off and then cut it. You can tape those threads down if you like, but they will be hidden inside the pocket. Now we've got our hinge on there. I can fold that back in half without worrying about what happens to that hinge. So you can see now how the hinge works. It's on there and it will act as a hinge, and we can come along and glue that anywhere on any page we like. Right, now I am going to cut across the top and across the bottom. Do not touch the side yet. So because we've got pencil lines, I'm going to cut just below the pencil line and cut the pencil line away. Turn it over, make sure it's laying nice and flat. Cut that bottom one off. Right, now we've done that, we've got to cut this scoop out. Now I'm going to distress ink the edges, just around the top and the bottom. That fold line there, and you can do the edge of your torn paper if you wanted to. Right, now we're ready to start gluing the pocket together. I'm going to use the Tombow glue. You can use a Barely Art glue, or you can use your Fabri-Tac or your Helmer fabric glue here in Australia. The reason I'm using the Tombow glue is because it's nice and strong and it's thin, so I can control it a bit more. So to make it easy for me, so I know where to put the glue. So if this were a normal pocket, say we were not going to cut out the edges of the butterfly, the normal pocket I'd be gluing down here. So I'd be putting a bead of glue down there on the inside and across the bottom. But because we're going to glue around the edge of the butterflies and down the side, we've got to do it a little bit different. So I'll bring back in my pattern, and it's got the pattern marks on it as to where that is. So we know it's there. I'm just going to push that mark through so I know that I've got to put glue down here, around the butterfly on the inside, down here. So I'm just going to do a very light pencil mark on the inside. So that is the shape of my normal pocket. So I'm going to glue down here around the shape of the butterfly. So everywhere I've got my squiggly line, I'm going to glue. I'm not going to glue in here because this is my pocket. You can glue on the other side as well if you wanted to. You just draw a line down there and do the same. Start gluing. You can go over those lines there on the butterfly wing, but not inside the pocket. See, I've gone over the edges of the butterfly. That's okay because when I close the page, it's going to join on to the butterfly on this side. All right, so I'm just going to close that down. I'm going to make sure that goes in there and I'm going to close that down. Right, so now I've got glue around the edge of the wings and out a little bit further. So when I fussy cut, I know that it's going to be glued down not only around the edge of the wings, a little bit further. So when I fussy cut, I know it's going to be joined really well. I'm just flattening that down. You can use your bone folder and keep it flat. Now, if your glue makes your paper buckle, you can put a weight on that and wait for it to dry, and then when it's dry we can go ahead and fussy cut. I don't like fussy cutting when the glue is still wet, so I'm going to leave that for 10 minutes and I'm going to put a weight on it and I'll be back when it's dry. I'm back to show you how to fussy cut the edge of these butterflies. You can make it cutting out the pocket with the pocket above the butterfly like this. So just his little antennas and the wings are protruding out. Or you can cut it down shorter, so you can cut it down to here and have the top of the top butterfly's wings up the top, and you just make that as a pocket straight across or put a scoop in it. So we're just doing it cut this way, and if you wanted to do it this way, you just keep continuing around, and I'll point that out when I get to it. Bring back in your template and make sure that you know where your line is. So we've got the line marked at the top and the line at the bottom. Just put a very light pencil mark here at the bottom, just so you know where to put the ruler line. We're going to put the ruler on the top line and the bottom line, and we're going to do a very light line in between the butterflies all the way down to the bottom, just so you can see that that's the edge of your pocket in between the butterflies. Right, now that's where we're going to cut. We're going to cut up that line around the butterfly, back to that line, up the line, round the butterfly, up the line, round the butterfly, and back up the line. I'm using the Cutter Bee scissors. They're my favourite for fussy cutting. If you want to do your straight lines, you can do a combination of your scissors. You can just do that there to cut you to there, and then we just rub away that line. So once you've got that started, just start fussy cutting. Now you'll see there is an outline around the butterfly that you follow. Just cut away the grey shadow. You can check the back side of this if you really want to, but I don't, because if you've missed it, you know, if it doesn't line up, it doesn't line up. There's not a lot you can do about it once you're at this stage. Again, you can bring your straight knife in. Cut to there. Now the reveal. Let's hope it's lined up on the other side. And it's not. But it still looks okay. It doesn't look out of place that it's not lined up. And it's going to be, this side is our visual side. So when that's glued down, you know, like that's, no one's going to stop and say, hey, you missed the outline. You know, this one here, it lined up pretty good. On the other side, it does become a hit and a miss. I've done a few of them, and this is probably the worst one I've done, just because I'm on camera. I'm pretty sure of it. Right, so I'm going to ink the edges of the butterfly, and that will help those edges. If you wanted those edges to be left so that they stand out, don't ink them, and you get that lovely creamy colour edge. Now again, if you wanted to cut across to there, you would just keep cutting all the way around there, depending on where you want that pocket to come across. If you wanted to come across to there, you cut all the way to there. If not, you cut to there and then tear that off or cut it off. Just manoeuvre them as best you can. Other than that, just use a little brush or whatever you've got. If you use a makeup brush, I think they're fairly easy to manoeuvre. And we have our butterfly hinge pocket ready to put into a journal. If you want it to be quite showy, it looks really good on the lace, the sort of lace coffee dyed paper. So we can put it there. The objective is so that it's a flip out. And then all that's left to do is to make a tag for it. So I'm actually going to, instead of gluing it straight down to the page like that, I'm going to glue a little journaling spot underneath it first. So I'm going to glue it to there first. Just work out whereabouts it's going to go. Pulled away a bit. I'm going that way. I'm all over the place. So I'm going to glue that there from that side because I can at least see where it's got to go. All right, now I'm going to glue that to there. So I'm just going to glue it down here and here. Work out where I want it. Right there. Now all I've got to do is work out whether or not I want some of this left poking out or whether I fold it over and make it a hidden journaling spot. So I need to cut that off because it's just a wee bit long. Now I've got a journaling space underneath. So you can glue it straight to your page if you've got some lined paper on your page, or you can glue it to a journaling spot that's hidden underneath and just have it freestanding like that. So it looks pretty cool, and it's great for adding into your journal after you're finished. And you've got a place here to put a tag. Let me know what you think about this little flip pocket. Thanks for watching, and ciao for now.